Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. This is Tuesday, November 25th. I just completed the video. It's around 8 o'clock at night. I'm just doing a quick voiceover here for this video that's going up on Thanksgiving. It's also the introductory audio to the 234th edition of the Journey series. And so I want to talk about gratitude. Before I get to that, I was answering some questions, or I was, addressing some comments. Some of them had to do with my daughter's suicide. Some of them had to do with gun control, and maybe some other things. Of course, there's always comments of people who telling me I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to the Bible. But there was a comment. Let me see. I gotta go through here and find it, where a person said, I think I got the comment here. Got the comment right here. Mr. Romano, how do you manage to upload so frequently? I digress. The Charlie Kirk affair has run its course. For what I can see, no shade at you, though. Just do what you do. There are a lot of people that say this. I want to address the first part of the comment. I didn't say anything about it. I want to say it there. There is an implication, I don't know particularly from this person, but there has been, more honest, like this would be a dickish way to say it. They say that I'm uploading too many videos to be a one-man show, right? That I somehow am, a shill for the CIA or some fucking whatever it is. Whatever, implies that some kind of thing that I'm not a one-man show here, and, I couldn't do this much on my own. People say stupid shit like this. My dad, he used to walk into, like, I'm a little kid and looking at my dad like he's a complete asshole, right? And he would walk into the garage where he's getting his car fixed, and he goes, "I know you guys are going to try to screw me over. I'm on to you." And I'm like, I'm looking at the guys and look at my dad. I'm like, yeah, whatever you did, you just increased the price. You made it very clear to them that they could take totally advantage of you if they wanted, because you don't know shit, right? And so, it's a dumbass thing to do, to accuse somebody based on, you can go and speculate and say it to other people, but the person knows, I know what I am and what I'm not, right? And, I've been able to make a video. I work every fucking day. And, it's stupid to think that I would be something other than I am, because my channel was getting only 2,000 views before this Charlie Kirk thing. It was down to 2,000 views. I was making, well under $100 a day. And it was, getting pretty grim, right? And it's kicked it back up a little bit, but not where it was before. My channel's bounced back. People are getting notified. New people are coming in. It's had a slight rebound or bounce back. But either way, the kind of numbers you need to do actual, where you get on these people's radar would be 20, 30,000 views a day or more. And even now, they're just being paranoid. The people who control the system, because they have to control everything. But, they're fucked. They don't want to admit to themselves, just like you don't want to admit to yourself that the system's fucked. And, nobody's paying me to say that shit, right? Nobody would pay me to tell you that the system's fucked, or that you have to find divinity within you. Who the fuck would pay for that? Who does that benefit? It's just stupid shit, right? And the bigger problem is, I know you're full of shit. I know you're a fucking moron for saying stupid shit, or making these bogus accusations. How you loading up? How do you upload so many videos? I work at it every day. I'm efficient, and I have God's help. Even with migraines and things like that. And I've slowed down a little bit. Now I'm only doing about 5 to 6 videos a week. I think it's 5 videos a week. There's 2 days I don't upload, and I just, Anyways, so it's just stupid shit. And that's it's depressing how stupid people are. People lack discernment. Anyways, so I just wanted to add that because I forgot to say that before. And so going with that, what I was saying in my last voiceover, in my last video, And to you listening in this Journey series, the previous Journey series, the last voiceover on that. I read a few comments of women who had lost a child. And there was a woman who lost a child like 9 years ago to drugs, and another who lost her child to drugs and suicide, and fairly recently, and she's struggling to figure out what God's will is and what God's plan is, right? I talk about all the time how God has a plan, and if you don't believe in God, then it's chaos, right? And so you got to either see a plan or not. If there's a plan, there's a plan. And so then it comes down to when you don't really like God's plan. When God has a plan and there's something that happens and you are like, fuck you, God. Like, why do you, this is what Erika Kirk should, if she really was, this thing with Megyn Kelly that I covered where they both were like, yeah, he was wearing a cross and a St. Michael's medal, and I don't know why it didn't protect him, all these things, right? When you feel like God isn't there for you and something unthinkable. Like, we all have things in our lives that you're like, I don't think I could bear that. Like, I don't think I could bear losing one of my kids. I don't think I could bear, my parents dying, something like this, right? People who you're really close to. And, it's beyond your capacity. The pain is beyond your capacity to bear. At least you think that. But in everybody's life, there are things that are so fucking painful. I talked a little bit about this in my last voiceover, the collapse of my family, the death of my daughter, my family, just the dream of the intergenerational farm imploding. My ex, like she was somebody who, I thought there was a chance that she would get better, right? Like there was signs of, people aren't like crazy all the time, or they're not, people with conditions, mental conditions, they have good times and bad times. People who have, various types of personality issues and, all these types of psychological disorders, they get worse under stress. They get worse under certain conditions, and there's times that they're better. And people have different sides of their personality. And so, everybody who is with somebody who's, going to turn out to be a complete piece of shit, they're an alcoholic or they're abusive, they're one way or another. Let's say your sister dates this guy who's like kind of beating the shit out of her, just runs her down and treats her shitty, and that's all you see of him. But she sees a totally different side, right? And she sees these two different sides, and she gives more emphasis to the side that isn't the piece of shit side, and she thinks that side will win over. And it rarely does, right? The good side rarely does. And every person has that. Like saints have it. They have the dark side and the good side, the good side, the saintly side. And, everybody has those two elements. And in most cases, particularly now, even the higher developed souls, the good side never completely wins over. Oftentimes, people fall. They have they go to the dark side. People always flirt with the dark side. At times, you have your negative thoughts and your whatever it is, tendencies and whatever addictive type things you have. Like everyone has these things, right? And everybody is, they're fighting the demons within, and they're, we're hopefully working to embrace the saint within. Although for most people that isn't the case. And so it became clear to me with my ex, there was a moment after she had left and gone back to America, and I was in Sri Lanka, and we just had a visa crisis in India, and then another visa crisis in Sri Lanka, and almost got kicked out of two countries that would have put us in desperate straits. We would have to fly out of India or Sri Lanka with very expensive plane tickets. I don't know if I could have even afforded them. Last minute plane tickets, right? Going to an airport and trying to buy plane tickets for that day for fucking 5 people, right? Or 6 people when it started when we were in India. We overextended our visa in India. And again, in Sri Lanka, we tried to get an extension. They denied it. And we were fucked. My ex was going back to America. My daughter was in crisis and was threatening suicide if we wouldn't let her get on social media. And, I was just like, I was just worn out. Like I was just, and so there was a point when my kids and I went back to India, and I realized that although my ex appeared to be trying at this intergenerational family farm that she was actually the whole time running like a counter program. Like this is somebody who had suffered sexual abuse very similar to the MK Ultra mind control program. I don't think she was a part of something like that, but she showed many of the same symptoms that women who claimed to be a part of that had gone through. She was sexually abused, and she had, divergent personalities, and all kinds of weird shit would emerge at different times. And I realized that she was planting the seeds within our spiritual organization and within herself. Like she was creating the circumstances that when our family went tits up, when our family failed, that somehow I would be the scapegoat. I would be to blame. Like she was working it so that this narrative was out there. And, when it was clear, like at the end when we were going to split up, she went to work even more consciously at making sure I was the one that everyone thought was the piece of shit, right? And I was like, holy shit, right? You never really ever intended to be successful. Like we worked at this intergenerational family farm and homeschooling and homesteading, and she was always sabotaging it. But I always thought it was because she was so fucked up from being abused that she was just, conflicted. Like, there's these times that there's this thing called EFT, and I don't think it really works that well. But we were trying it out, and, it was clear that she was sabotaging our ability to create, income, and she wanted us to live in poverty because I think she felt like if there was enough money that I would leave her, right? And, so I had her tap on this idea that she could be married to and be a part of a successful family. She had lived in poverty her whole life, even though her dad was the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And she couldn't do it. Like she couldn't, let go of the need to live in poverty and to be a victim and all these things, right? And so, I felt like that was sabotaging us, but it wasn't something intentional. But I realized it was some kind of manipulative plot. I was like, holy shit, right? I wasted 18 fucking years on something that, like whatever, couldn't happen. And all of her mental breakdowns and all the things I endured. I was no saint, no great, husband and father. I mean, I had my own issues coming from a dysfunctional family, but hers were just so overwhelming, and the stress and things. And I went through this cleaning. In Sajmar, we call it a cleaning, where, things come up to be cleaned out. And because of all these things, and then I was kind of ostracized, and because of her work, it started to demonize me. And, I didn't give a shit what people thought. Like at some point, that was really liberating. And then, of course, with the YouTube channel, that's why I can thrive on the internet, because at some point I realized I don't care what these people think. Like, why would it bother me, right? Whatever, So, I went through this whole process with it. And I got all these sittings, these individual cleanings that you get in Sajmark, and, all the transmission you get to help move all the energy and uplift you to a higher level. And I realized I had a resentment to God in a past life. And it was a deep thing, and it was like a feeling of bitterness that kept on surfacing in my inner condition. The Sajmark system's about cleaning out the things that block your connection to God. And it took about 3 months of intense cleaning, 18, my whole life to some extent, but then these 18 years, and then the collapse of the family. And when it got pulled out, I was like, oh my God, I'm like a new person. And so it made all of the stuff I went through worth it. Even, someone as crazy and as like, just sucky as my ex, and, and things like that. It made it worth it, because something that was unpleasant in my system was pulled out by these circumstances. And I still have the memory of it, and a little bit of the feeling remains, but the feeling I felt of gratitude, like I felt like if all I accomplished in this life was to get rid of this inner bitterness I had towards God, like that would be totally worth it. Like, everything else after this is like the cherry on top of the cake. Like, there's spiritual goals of liberation and mukti, liberation, and layavasta. These are Sanskrit words for emergence with God, God realization, when your soul emerges back in the source. And those things would be great, and whatever. They were never something I was aware of until I started doing the Sajmark practice. And it's not something that I don't have an internal craving for it because everybody does, but not consciously, but just in terms of things that I can see like the improvement, and not having that bitterness towards God was like an unbelievable godsend. Like it's just a blessing, and I was always a big fan and fully bought into the Sajmarg meditation that I was doing. But when that happened, I was like, this is like just it really works. Like this is I mean I experienced it being efficient and working, but it took it to a new level. My understanding and appreciation and gratitude for it. And some of the teachings of the system is miseries as divine blessings, right? That these things that you endure in life, they act as a cleansing mechanism through this process of boga. So this take miseries as divine blessings for your own good and be thankful. In Maxim 7, be not revengeful for the wrongs done by others, take them with gratitude as heavenly gifts. These aren't just like blind, like, let's go along with this because it says so in the books. You can actually experience the benefits, which I had. These wrongs that were done upon me had cleaned out things inside of me that I didn't want to have. And so I was grateful for them. And these miseries that I went through, they helped me get closer to God. And so, I really understood gratitude on a different level. I had been working on gratitude, and you have the 5 stages of grief, and gratitude is like the 6th stage, right? They have anger, denial, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. But acceptance isn't gratitude. Gratitude is when you're actually grateful and you realize that there had been some benefit and reason for something horrific happening, right? That you have to figure that out. You have to find something. And when you feel it inside of you, when you feel that there's been a difference, which I was able to, after 30 years of meditation, I was able to be sensitive enough and aware of it. Like I just felt like a new person. Like I was making more serotonin. I was like, a different person. Like what it felt like to be me was so much lighter. Like I was carrying around this burden. And when I realized, it was like when you put on ankle weights and you run around with something heavy, and then you take it off and your feet feel light, and you feel like a completely different person, right? And what it means to walk feels like completely different. You're like I mean your feet are less light. The whole thing. If you guys ever had ankle weights on, but this was more of a internal feeling, and so gratitude is about that, right? Gratitude is the highest stage, especially when it's things that you don't want to have happen. When the unthinkable happens, and you later on are grateful for them, and it takes some time, and then you can see that and you have to be looking for it, you have to be open to it, you have to pray for God's help to see it in some cases, but that's the key to existence. Like, the bad things are going to happen. Everyone's going to have trauma and difficulties. We lived in a fucked up world, and death is a part of it. We're limited in our ability to see the true spiritual reason for anything. We're often indoctrinated. I mean, everyone's indoctrinated by the system and the beast. And then there's our egos and our desires and our perception. And it's very easy for people to say, hey, you got it wrong, God, because you can't see beyond your limited perspective, right? You have a small window of reality in a small time period. The now, you have the past and the future and the now, and it's very limited. And it's how far forward you can go, almost not at all for most people. Projecting forward, and you only have a limited grasp of the past, your memories and things, misunderstandings of why things happen, and so people don't learn to appreciate the things that are difficult they go through, how it helps you become something better and helps you evolve and get closer to God, and it's part of your spiritual path. And people also have trouble when good things happen. They freak out. They're like, well, if a good thing happened, now a bad thing's got to happen. And this is all, people don't know how to be successful. And they're more scared of the saint inside of them than the potential saint than they are the potential demon, which is another problem for human beings, right? And so, when you just be grateful for things, you just, when good things are going, that this is, enjoy it, it's great, it's whatever, let's enjoy this period of time and of whatever, rest and before the next fucking big trauma thing happens, and then, enjoy that, or, suffer it, and like with the idea that God's blessing you in some way. And the people that are able to do that, you minimize all of these things because at some point you're immune to them, and it doesn't even matter, right? That all the stuff inside of you is gratefulness. You're just grateful for everything that God does for you. This is the state of where there's nothing inside of you that other than gratefulness and love and things like that. No complaints, no, criticisms, just everything's part of God's plan, and everything's beautiful, and the good, the bad, the ugly, the life, the death, the pain, the suffering, the joy, all the stuff. It all is purposeful. It's all part of an orchestrated, scripted plan, and it's all for your personal benefit and everybody's collective benefit, and we all can learn to, bask in the wonder that is the divine essence that is, carving a path for us in front of us that we just have to be grateful for. That's why Thanksgiving is kind of the best holiday. A lot of it is about sort of gluttony. My wife and I had Thanksgiving dinner like 2 weeks ago. Like, I made turkey and stuffing and potatoes and gravy. Tomorrow we'll, start sous videing the turkey for that, and then there'll be some beans and things. There'll be no kids, I think, this year. So this will be the first time we're just alone, and that's going to be, I guess, better in many ways because because it is. But, my wife makes a cranberry pie and things, and a few other things that we're going to probably make less things, but the food's one thing, and that's great. That's just part of a traditional thing. But the idea to be grateful, right, aside from the food and anything else, any tradition, watching football or whatever you might do, it's about being grateful. Like, all the other things are about receiving. Like, Christmas and birthdays about getting presents. It's 100% about materialism. And Easter and Halloween are stuffing your ghoul hole with candy. And the Easter holiday is, Halloween's just a bogus. It's like a day of the, like, Samhain or whatever it is, some druidic holiday for the, this is these are equinox holidays, right? And so, they're about receiving candy and getting dressed up like a ghoul or a demon or whatever it is. Go banging on your fucking neighbor's door, and there's materialism there. Of course, Christmas has become so materialistic about gifts and things, overwhelming materialism. Also, former holiday of it's not Jesus' real birthday. And then you have Easter, which is, also, there's a lot of candy and shit like that. Bad shit that's bad for you. Oftentimes it's, your immune system takes a hit, and, the whole thing. And it's about, receiving and these types of things where, so you take aside the turkey and the meal, it's about being grateful, right? And, not that people think about it that way, but, it's a holiday of gratitude. So anyways, I just want to add that. That's, the goal should always be gratitude because, all these other things you go through, when you reach a stage of gratitude for everything, especially the bad things, and you're grateful to God, then your relationship with God changes completely. And you're working towards, if you can't see it, knowing, like having faith that there's some reason for everything that you're going through. And that God has a plan for you, and God wants what's best for you. And that is, he's not trying to punish you or hurt you or whatever. There's things that there's things that you've done in the past that you have to pay for, the consequences for things you did in the past, but that's not of God's doing, but of yours. And that when those things when you've paid your spiritual debts, your spiritual bills, and these things that come up, that you can deepen your relationship with the divine within you and move to a different level of consciousness. Anyways, I don't know what else I'm going to do for the video today. It's I'll be working on this one tomorrow, I guess. But for now, I actually got a bunch of things to get to. There's stuff they're going to fire Cash Patel, and Erika Kirk wants J.D. Vance. She's already endorsing him for 28, and there's a couple of other things. A lot of other things, actually. But anyways, let's get to it. Okay, so it's the day before Thanksgiving, Wednesday, November 26th. This video will be up tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Thanksgiving time, or 8 maybe. I'll put it up a little bit earlier. Maybe even 7. Who's to say? Who's to say? So Candace Owens had a big announcement. I was going to lead with that. You know, it's she's like getting fucking. She's goofy and like, I'll explain all that in a moment. But there's this also, and they're in competition. I'll get to that. But this is going to lead to a big announcement itself.
You'll be equally yoked, where you're not having.
Let's go back just a little bit more.
Friend like your husband. Don't treat your boyfriend like your fiance. Treat them like your boyfriend. Treat your fiance like your fiance and your husband like your husband. And
like she's talking like she was a good wife, right? The thing is that a lot of the stuff she's saying, my ex was a very liberal, went to Wellesley University where Hillary Clinton went, and these people. But when she started doing the meditation, where there's not a conservative the way that right wing conservatives are, but true conservatism. Master Chargy, the third master of the system, was conservative, and he believed in the sanctity of marriage and the in the ancient Hindu tradition. And my ex wanted to research this because she was like a perpetual student, like she was a really good student, but couldn't take any of that knowledge and then apply it to the world practically in some successful way. Like she was somebody who was like, top student in her high school class, but never held a real job in her life, right? Like this kind of thing. If people who just go and are constantly in the process of being, in academia as a student and not even as a teacher. But she dove into Christian conservative women's groups and things like this. And she joined all these groups, and like I from there, I've had a lot of these conservative Christian people be a part of the channel here, and so I understand like evangelical lingo, right? Like she's going to talk about the things she said about being equally yoked. I know about all that stuff, right? The way that they think about it, but she's smart. Like she's smart enough to know intellectually the language, the lingo. But she's not that. Like she's clearly not that. Like she's a Hollywood person. She wanted to be on reality TV. She's an attention hoe. Like she's, most likely some kind of a handler here and these kind of things. She's ambitious, in ways that, wives who are, if you're going to dedicate your life to being a wife and a mom, which is, a good, most women should do that. It's not for every woman, but most women should do that because it's the most important thing, right? In terms of society, and God. If you're going to devote your life to God and family, your husband, your kids, you can, make a big difference in the world. Your kids can become great and, in their way, not great in like, whatever. Like in what people think about great now, but in terms of really good people, like loved people. Like I read that quote from Chargy about, a child that's loved from the being in the an infant to being like 6 or 7 years old and being around the mom and protected and away from the not running. They can't wait to get the kids out into the world, like with get a head start, right? Get the kid out of the house at 3, daycare and all that shit. Get them out of the house and these things. That's why they've pushed for women to work and whatever it is. But if you're going to embrace that, it's a role where there's no glory in it, right? There's no glory in being a good mom or a good dad. If you're doing it like performative on social media, you want everybody to see it like she does, it cheapens it, right? It's something that's just there. that you don't need to display to other people. And so she's not that, right? She's ambitious. She likes the spotlight. She likes to do these things. I mean, she's, been doing this for a long time. And so, here.
And I think that when you stay focused on the Lord and the lane that He has you in, which is a stream of significance, keep swimming in that. The man that's supposed to be with you will not detract you from the Lord. He'll enhance your focus on the Lord. And
And he'll do that by taking lots of shekels. Taking, Donnie shekels.
help be there to build with you, to love on you, to be there for your family. He won't tear you away from your family. He won't challenge your beliefs.
Like, these aren't her ideas. Like, these aren't things that she realized. These are things that I've heard before, right? I know that this exists as, Christians have heard this before, right? This is, Christian women will say these kind of things. And so, if she was really doing this, she wouldn't have done this gaudy fucking funeral, because none of this stuff matters. There's no, being out there in front of fucking people, it doesn't fucking matter. Like being, having like this, doing this kind of thing in front of people, getting lots of views, it doesn't make you anything, right? Having people look at your social media account, if you have 10 people or you have 10 million, doesn't fucking matter. In terms of finances, sure. In terms of getting a message out, sure, if you're really getting a message out. More people seeing you does not affect you in any kind of positive way. Unless, maybe they're praying for you, or maybe you've affected them in some kind of positive way, which you're working for God and doing whatever. But the greatest spiritual people, many of them, died basically anonymously with nobody knowing they even existed, right? Because your spiritual life has nothing to do with how many people you have sitting in the pews. The pews. So it's very performative. And she can say these words and sound kind of sincere. I mean, she's not as bad at this as she is as grieving, right? But this is all fake. Like this whole grieving thing, the whole black, the whole, dab in her eyes, this whole thing. Obviously, she didn't love Charlie in any real way, whether that was a real marriage or not. It's debatable. Like, she knows, right? The people around her know. But this is, in terms of what she's doing now, it's just performative. It's not real.
In a way that makes you question the Lord and what you know in your heart to be true. He'll love you so well, just like my Charlie did.
Like my Charlie, my Charlie, my Charlie, my Charlie, my Charlie, my Charlie. Like, it's fucking weird. My Charlie.
And he'll be a compliment to you in such a beautiful way. And you'll be equally yoked, where you're not having to compete and you're not having to strive. The two of you are...
She often says competing, right? That's a modern day thing, but it's not such a big thing for Christian women. Like, they're not as competitive with their husbands as liberal women. Like, liberal women are very competitive, right? But she says it over and over again. It seems like there was a competition there, even from their first meeting. Like, she debated him, and she's like, I'll show you how much I know. Like, there's definitely something where she was competing with him, right?
In lockstep, and you're building something beautiful for the kingdom, and it's powerful.
It's so powerful, man. That's so great. Look at her.
If I could, just a quick addendum. Don't be a slut.
Kaboom. She's got it. Like, fucking Megan's bringing it. Don't be a slut. They're doing like a good cop, bad cop here thing. And she's look at her laugh. Yeah, that's so funny, Megan.
Right.
Just
Right.
That too.
That too. I can't say those words. I'm so saintly. I can't say the word slut. I can't say it, but I agree with you. And let's do this.
Note to self.
Note to self. Right.
All right, now in the time we have
Speaking of being a slut, let's get into this right here. This is the big announcement. Which, spoiler alert, I'm editing now, but which, spoiler alert, it's going to be about J.D. Vance. I kind of went back too far. And there was, whatever, you'll see it when it comes up. But, Megan, with Erika J. Kirk is very like slutty. I mean, Christian slutty, right? Like the way that she was all over that guy in the music video, and she's very handsy with him. She was willing to date that gay dude on that reality TV show. Very flirtatious with him. Very sexual and very flirtatious. The way that she's dressing, like she dresses in ways that are, kind of a little bit conservative, but a little bit hint of like, she'd be considered slutty. It's the traditional Christian women, right? She's not wearing some kind of head covering. The extensions, the gaudy jewelry, but more the way that she's very touchy-feely. If you see that video in which it's a making of the video, the country music video, she's in Vegas, and she's all over this guy, like the guy, she's her co-star. And she's hugging him, and she's, flirting with him and flirting with the camera, so I mean, I don't know if you'd call that slutty, but it certainly isn't, a woman who's very reserved. Like she's clearly, getting men to like her through being very forward, affectionate, and these things, flirtatious. I mean, that is slutty, whatever. Let's get back to it here.
I've got to ask you this. Turning Point played a massive role in the past election, in the presidential election.
So
massive
amazing.
role.
So amazing. So amazing.
And so we have to talk about what Turning Point may or may not do in 26, and most importantly in 28, and why is it get behind J.D. Vance?
Let's start with midterms first before we start jumping to 28, and let's enjoy the fact that we do have Donald Trump in office, and we worked really hard.
Let's enjoy that fact.
Okay, so Donald Trump is a obvious piece of shit now. Like, the thing is, they get you, and, some people stay gotten. Some people get gotten again. But all these young people, they realize Donald Trump is a piece of shit on Israel. Like, the people who are young and they realize Israel sucks. And then some of these other things. And as this plays out, and Trump isn't fixing the economy, he isn't fixing any of these things. And it just, he's obviously not Christian. He's not a good person. He doesn't care about other people. He's bought and sold these tiny half shekels. And, they're going after dumb people. Like, this is what this is about. This is dumb fuck. This is dumb fuckistan 101. They don't care about smart people, but there are smart people that, young kids who didn't know better, they just jumped on the bandwagon. And we don't even know how much Turning Point actually did influence the election, because they don't need it. Like, they can just fake anything. They can pretend it did to justify a victory. And how hard is it to beat Kamala Harris? Like, let's be honest. Like, how hard it was to beat Kamala Harris? It's obvious that the controllers put Donald Trump in. I mean, he was, he's not some maverick billionaire who just wants to do right by the common man and flush out the deep state. That's all bullshit, right? Like, and there's lots of people waking up to that, more than enough to, undermine any kind of future with this. So, Turning Point got a bunch of people, but now it's lost all of it. It's got nothing. Turning Point has no mojo. And even if Charlie Kirk was still alive, it would be less than it was because, he was bought and sold by Israel. And a lot of people kind of understand that, these young people. And either way, it was a thing where, like, he tapped into the anger of these young men, many of them young white men, who are being screwed over by the liberal agenda. And now it's clear that Turning Point and Trump didn't really serve them. It didn't make a difference. Young people get, they're idealistic, these college kids. And so it's over, right? We know it's over because nobody gives a shit about Turning Point anymore.
Really hard to make that happen. My husband did.
He
So
did. He worked really hard.
Enjoy that for a minute before we start jumping ahead, but
Enjoy what he's doing? I mean, like, when politicians get elected, there's the candidate that says the things you want to hear, and then there's the real politician that doesn't do the stuff that he promised you. And then people are like, oh, fuck you then, right? And then they're like, well, I still don't want to vote for the other side, so I guess I'll vote for this piece of shit again. But, whatever Donald Trump's mojo, like, there's lots of people know he sucks. And he was already very capped. He was hard capped at 48%. Like, 52% were never Trumper voters. And those people are going to be more. It's going to be, carrying through. JD Vance is not going. Well, let's get into that here. But they have nothing. Like it's over, right? This is it. Like you've spent all of your capital on this piece of shit, and he let you down, right? Like
My husband, like I said, built a machine.
he built a machine with shekels. It was a machine that ran on shekels.
And some of the secret sauce within that was that
Shekels. The secret sauce was shekels.
he loved the students, but also
The shekels. He loved those fucking shekels. It's such a great word. Like, I'm really glad this is my shekel period. Like, this is, whatever time this is where I get to say shekels a lot, and really, like, every time I say it, makes me happy.
he loved empowering them to know that they could make a difference and how important voting was.
Yeah, fucking not important at all. Like, all these other pieces of shit are realizing, you see these people coming out, Tucker Carlson now, Candace, and some of these other people. They're questioning whether it makes a difference. There's no, that there's a Marjorie Taylor Greene who's in it. She's like leaving because she knows there's no difference between the, she called it the uniparty right there. The left-right paradigm, like that's when you come in and you think there's a difference and you think that one side, you kind of wake up partially. And then you're like, I'll vote for one more time or whatever. I'm not sure about this. This guy seems like he gets it. And then you realize, it's fucked. Like both sides are controlled, and your vote's a waste. It means that you're bought into a bullshit thing, right? Your vote means nothing. It doesn't even count because they picked the person. They obviously picked Trump. They picked this whole thing. They picked Trump, Biden, Trump. This was a whole, the way it went. This was orchestrated because of all the shit that's going down now.
And when you see these pictures of him when he first started Turning Point USA, he was so bought into his own mission. He wasn't, in an office cubicle while the students were out an event. He was there wearing his lanyard with his little name tag and a big
so smiles. They're so cute. He's so cute.
Gov sucks button and socialism sucks button.
Those buttons, they kicked ass. I mean, those buttons were everything. Why did those buttons prevent him from getting shot, like his medal and cross? Yeah, look at her smile.
And he believed in the mission so much. And for a lack of a better term,
she talks like this, like I said, she talks like a Hallmark card. Charlie, when he gets into dad mode and he puts on his buttons and his dad mode and his buttons and he goes out there, he's got his little lanyard with his name. He's up there. He's not like anything but the desk, and he's just there. Like he does it.
Knew that the unsexy work was what it took to save elections, which is tennis shoes and clipboards.
Tennis shoes and clipboards on these fucking whore heels. I mean, she talked about don't be a slut, and they got these come fuck me pumps on.
And speaking to your neighbors, knocking on doors, being involved with your community, not being afraid to
getting the shekels. Like, remember, don't minimize the shekels. Like, don't dismiss the shekels as being a big part of this.
Explain to people why you believe what you believe. And nothing is changing at Turning Point USA or Turning Point Action. If anything, it's just continuing to grow. I mean, you've seen the numbers of how many chapters and churches and...
Yeah, that means nothing. Like, you guys got a bunch of dumb fucks. But you're not gonna get the kind of numbers that do anything. The Republicans are toast, right?
It's been phenomenal. And yes, there is a structure of quality over quantity, but...
Quality over quantity, that means dumb fucks. They no longer have the quantity because they just have dumb fucks. Like they've purged the fucking people with double-digit IQ, with triple-digit IQs.
6 midterms, obviously we'll be focusing heavily on Arizona. It's our home state.
It's our home state. We're going to get it. We're going to get Arizona. We're going to deliver it for the Republicans like everyone else gets trounced. And we're going to talk about how great we are.
Woo! But... the thing I love the most, especially about, and if you guys have ever been to our campus, if you have not, I really suggest
There's buildings that are built by shekels. It's like a campus built by shekels.
Come by. We have a building that's specifically for the Turning Point Action building. And it is one of my favorite buildings to go into because
There's lots of them. They're all mine. Like, I own all these buildings now. Like, fuck that guy. Like, now I own them. And when I go in them, I'm like, hey, look at this building. This is my favorite. It's like my jewelry, my gaudy fucking jewelry. It's like my building. There's my building there. There's my building there. There's another building. I get a building. I get a building. I get a building.
feel the heartbeat of Charlie in there from a strategy standpoint.
I mean, his heartbeat's in the building. Like, I put one in the wall, so it's like you could hear it. Like, it freaks out the employees, but like it's just like it's a machine.
It's like a war room in there. They have the polling and they have the strategy laid out and they have the door knockers. It's really
Door knockers. Like, my door knockers aren't so big, so like I got door knockers in there.
powerful to witness. And I can just see Charlie being like, knock on that one more door.
Knock on
One more door. Talk to that neighbor one more time.
One more time. Knock him. Harass the shit out of him. Don't leave until you get those guys to crumble. And say, all right, fuck, I'll vote for him. Just get off of my fucking yard.
And so we are thrilled to be able to still make massive impacts and inroads with the upcoming elections. And the team that Charlie built, I tell you what, I would bet on them any
Bet on
day,
them.
always.
I would. Okay, when you guys get trounced, are you going to come out and say, yeah, you're fucking impotent or impotent?
I mentioned JD, you mentioned Trump. Can you just give us a minute on them? Because from afar, it has looked like they've been so there for you.
They've been so there. They've been so there when they came to you and said, hey, we're going to have to murder your husband. And we wanted to make sure you're on board with it. And so then we'll be totally on board with you.
Yes.
And I don't think most people were surprised to see JD do it, but everyone says Trump has no empathy. He's a nasty guy. He's a mean guy. He's a Nazi. Pick your term.
Pick your term. Everyone? You mean even the right wing? Everyone said it. He said everyone. Everyone says that.
I saw him with you at the Presidential Medal of Freedom when he awarded it to Charlie posthumously. Can you just tell us a little bit about how they've been behind
So, I mean, the empathy coming off that guy. Charlie didn't believe in empathy, remember? Charlie Kirk said he didn't believe in empathy, thought it was a new age term.
scenes in this whole thing?
Charlie and President Trump had a really special relationship.
And this is just like with these rings, my gaudy jewelry.
It was one that some people would understand, others wouldn't. Sometimes it was fatherly son, but at other times it was this mutual deep respect of being able to build in a way where...
Okay, so the J.D. Vance thing I'm trying to get to,
Trump understood building in Manhattan and building, across the country and across the world architecturally. And Charlie understood building with Turning Point USA and his ability to see things that other people...
like this when she gets into this dreamy state, and she looks up off into the distance, and she said, he understood building, and he was just my Charlie. This weird fucking thing she does, this Hallmark bullshit fucking acts, right? And it appeals to a certain group of people. Like, she still has some kind of an audience, but really not much of anything, right? Like, this is, most people know this stuff is fake, even if they have to do it. Fake grieving, fake crying, fake, whatever else she's doing. She's not authentic. And we live in a time of authenticity, right? Charlie Kirk was at least came across authentic to what he believed. Obviously, he was getting shackled up. But, he believed in these things, where she is clearly just acting. She might believe in them, but she doesn't have, it's like people don't have, it's like she's missing internal parts of herself, right? Like, she doesn't know how to be herself.
couldn't really see, especially in other people. But what Charlie really appreciated about President Trump is that no matter what anyone says about him, he is so mission focused.
He's so mission focused, not the empathy. Like, he gets a shekel, and he's going to deliver on those shekels until somebody else gives him more shekels, and then he'll deliver for them.
So laser focused, and Charlie was the same way.
Laser focused.
And he admired so much the president's tenacity to keep going, especially after January 6th, when no one wanted anything to do with him.
After he sold out those people, right? Like that was, if you didn't understand this as a fucking QB, as a QAnon person and a right-wing person, Trump fucked you. He fucked you on the vaccine, then he fucked you on the election, and then he brought all those people up there like he walked into a fucking trap set by either he was following orders, which I don't think, but I think they just worked the guy. Nobody ever got work like Trump did, right? Like he just was worked. And then he fucked these people. He totally disavowed them after he was responsible. And then he went back and pardoned them when he got in power again. But, that whole thing was his fault. And then he was just a mess for 3 years and, all that fake persecution of him that I said, yeah, call me when he's in jail. Call me when he can't run for president again. They're not going to get rid of their asset. Trump has been the liberal media and the Democratic Party's biggest asset. Like their whole life is built on, well, at least we're not Trump. And you can see it over and over again. And so, like, why would they talk about it so much if he wasn't such an asset for them, right? Anyways, we're getting to the J.D. Vance thing. I didn't know this stuff was coming, but this is worth watching. In terms of, as much as you can stomach this fucking...
And Charlie said, I got your back. And he meant it.
He meant it. He said, I got your back, and he meant it. Like, most times Charlie said something, he didn't mean it. Like, this is one time he said it, and he said, I got your back, Trump, and he fucking meant that shit. Like, the fact that she has to say he meant it, why the fuck did he say it? Of course he meant it. Why even saying that? He meant it. No, he fucking meant it.
And moments like that really put into perspective the human aspect of politics.
There's no, Jesus Christ. She does this licking of her lips quite a bit. That's her tongue, not her lip.
You can go down the rabbit hole of slandering someone, but at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, the most important thing is that you realize that we're all just doing our best here.
It's including that young man.
Our one life that we have.
Including that young man, and I don't want to, it sucks to be you, young man.
And the president was so good to Charlie from the standpoint of, he didn't look down to Charlie. He appreciated his ability to be able to mobilize the youth, but also to share the message of how amazing the country we live in. Yes, we have faults. Anything with humans have faults. We're all sinful.
We're all sinful, particularly me. I've been sinning like crap behind closed doors now for years. You guys can't even believe it. I kind of got a little bit embarrassed when she said that slut comment. I don't want,
But he appreciated that Charlie was always there for him, and he was always there for Charlie. And the president has always had a very soft spot in my heart because I got to witness that he wasn't just the president to my husband. He was a friend.
He was a friend. I knew she was going there.
And I'll never forget that.
Yeah. And JD and Usha have been incredibly supportive.
Amazing. Oh,
It's
fucking
been
Usha,
really
that
nice to
Usha.
see.
Can't wait to get that bitch out of the way.
I look forward to you guys throwing the full weight of Turning Point behind them in about 3 years. Am I being subtle?
No,
I'm not.
don't worry,
not being
it's already,
subtle.
it's in
All
the
right.
works. But that was a thing that my husband was very direct about. It was, interestingly enough, one of the last few conversations we had was how intentional he was about supporting JD for 28.
Yeah.
Boom. He was intentional. Boom. Charlie's dying words was, go support JD. Now, JD...
He was totally behind JD. And he was largely
100%.
responsible for Trump picking JD.
That's true.
JD was this guy. It's true. Okay, so that was the part I want to show you. They were playing this on liberal media last night. I want to get to Candace. I might come back to this. And we'll see I got a bunch of things to get to. I'll probably come back to a little of this. You got to take it in small doses. But Turning Point is done. Its influence is done, like I said. You fooled me once kind of thing. And Charlie Kirk was, they're not addressing his evolution on Israel because he knew he was losing his audience. And he knew it. Like, he wouldn't have, he's taking shekels. And if he could have done anything to not have to talk about Israel or bring in Israel, people who are anti-Israel, he would have. But he knew he couldn't do that and retain his audience. And so now these guys are all shackled up. They have her locked up Erika J. Shekels Kirk. And so Shekel Taker Kirk. And, this is, Megyn Kelly, a little bit, she says she didn't take any shekels, and, maybe that's true. But she is only mildly critical of Israel. But, they've lost their audience. We can go over the turning point I show you all the time. The show sucks. And they're going to get hammered in the midterms. And, Trump is he's flaming out. He's like fucking spiraling. The Jeffrey Epstein stuff's going to come out. And people are going to be like, this guy is a fucking creep, right? There's stuff coming. Like, you think there's not stuff coming, right? And he's covered it up already. People know. More and more people know about it. And, Trump has his whatever percentage of support. The dumb fucks. And, whatever black people, whatever. That just don't fucking, have the ability for critical thinking or whatever it might be. But, it's over. Like, Trump's thing is over. And J.D. Vance is fucking not getting... I would be shocked if he was president. He's fucking creepy as fuck. He's weird. And, he just... he's coming in as... Like, they're going to want... The Republicans have been wanting to get rid of the Trump era for a long time. And so J.D. Vance got his fingerprints. All those people who are Trump people, it's like they're wrecked. Like, Trump does not pull people up, and people do not come out of Trump's orbit better off. There's a long list of people that were fired, their careers are over, or they're in jail because they were Trumpers, right? They're Trump people. You either disavow Trump at some point, and even if you do, you're kind of fucked because everyone's like, why'd you do that? And when this thing all goes down, they're gonna pin a lot of this on Trump, a lot of what's coming, and because there's not good shit coming. Like, the economy's going to tank and wars and whatever's going to happen, they're going to blame Trump. And so J.D. Vance is done. Turning Point's done. So let's go to the Candace Owen thing here. Okay, so there's an icon on the top of my thing. You can't see it here because it's there. It's a little movie camera. And when I open up, the YouTube full screen, I can't see it. Like, it's a little movie camera. And... that it's for screen flow, and I'm recording the screen. And every once in a while, I forget to turn it on, like probably 1 out of 10 times. I forget to turn it on, and I'm just fucking talking to myself and not recording everything. And I went up to click it off. The last segment this is a long segment of 10 or 15 minutes long, and I'm 7 minutes of 5 minutes of Erika Kirk. And I'm like, please, God, make sure please, 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 make sure I turned it on because I don't want to watch that bitch again. Like, I didn't, it's early in the morning. I just don't want to go through. Like, you're having to watch stuff twice and say the same stuff over again and try to remember all the jokes and all the things. But anyways, I did click it on, so thank God. Because, she's just so hard to watch. She just sucks so bad. And, I know that lots of people feel that way. My wife does, I know for sure, and many of you. Like, she's the worst. But Candace Owens isn't much better. Our show will be off the air this week. This came in last night. Our show will be off the air this week. As an update, both the White House and our counterterrorism agencies have confirmed receipt of what I reported publicly. Emmanuel Macron attempted to organize my assassination per a source close to the first couple. Also, I will again state that the French legionnaires were involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination, but they did not act alone. For all of you who doubted my claims, you can now look to the President of the United States and our intelligence community to issue a statement to confirm whether I am telling the truth. Okay. So, this is number one, Candace Owens now has fully grabbed the spotlight, and she is the belle of the fucking ball. And she, it seems like every time Erika Kirk makes an appearance, Candace Owens drops a bombshell, right? And gets more views. Of this again, they're fighting for the same audience, right? Like you're not. I'm not fighting for the audience. I'm not fighting for the. Like I just put out my shit, right? Whatever it is. Like there's not really people that are like me out here, But the people that I'd be in competition with would be other truthers, right? Like, CNN isn't in competition with Fox. Like they always compare Fox and MSNBC and CNN. CNN and MSNBC are fighting for the same people, the same demographic, right? Candace Owens and Turning Point are now fighting for that audience in a very oppositional way. And she never mentions Erika Kirk other than to praise her for her great speeches and things, which is, like Candace Owens is cynical. She knows that Erika Kirk is fake. And Erika Kirk never says Candace Owens' names. I never heard her once talk about Candace, right? And so, she said that I would stop covering this if Erika Kirk would say, stop covering it. Of course, if Erika Kirk did that, she would get so much heat, right? So she can't do it. And so they're in competition. I think they hate each other. Even these people who are, people are human beings. And even if they're shills or even if they're controlled opposition, even if they're mind control people, when you go into some, when they put assets out into the field like CIA and, Mossad and these people, they form human relationships with the people that they're spying on, these covert operations. I mean, I've talked about this. There's some guy, he was working for the FBI or the police or something, and he infiltrated some left-wing group, and he married some girl and had like 3 kids with her, or whatever. Like they were a couple. They were like together for like 10 years. And oftentimes these people have to be deprogrammed because they, it's like you start living this life, even within a week, we know it's about Stockholm syndrome. So all these people are still, even if they're being handled or even if they're being, they know what they're doing is fake, they still get into it. They get into their role. And Candace Owens is clearly into her role. I think Erika Kirk, for whatever way that she feels things, is into her role. And they're in competition. They're both fighting for something, and Candace Owens is kicking her ass. I mean, just Erika Kirk's got nothing. She's got the grieving riddle thing that's running out. She's got this Christian speak, but she's so inauthentic and insincere, and she's getting killed in terms of views, right? So this has 11 million views. It had 7 million views when I saw it last night. I'm sure there's all kinds of comments about this. Candace, receipt simply means someone opened an email or logged in on an online report. It does not confirm your claim, your source, or your interpretation that there is now intelligence verification works. That's not how intelligence verification works, and you know it. If the President of the United States or a counterterrorism agency believed France had attempted to assassinate an American citizen, the response would not be silence from Washington and an Instagram story from you. It would be diplomatic crisis, emergency briefings, an immediate press conference from the State Department. And for the record, not one single reputable source, journalist, agency, or government has corroborated even one detail of the story you're repeating. Not one. You can ask the government to confirm it, but they will not, because there's nothing to confirm. Repeating it does not make it real, and silence does not make it true. Why are you explaining, Candace? Why are you explaining English to me like I'm not a native speaker? I said what I meant. They confirmed receipt of my claims. Obviously, they will have to investigate it and then inform the public as to whether or not I made it up, which I did not. Meow. Kaboom. This guy's a person, U.S. Senator, Isaac Holt for U.S. Senate. Well, for U.S. Senate, he's running. With all due respect, what makes you think you are important enough to assassinate? Do you really think a foreign nation, an ally, would risk assassinating 2 American citizens, one of whom was very close to Trump? For what? You are not that important. So, first of all, let me just say this. I'm going to get into this bullshit claim here. There was this stuff about how Candace Owens, at least my wife had seen a bunch of these things, and maybe some of you guys did. I don't comb through all this shit. I don't give a fuck about it. Just everything that I read, you guys see. Like everything that I know about this, you guys see. Like I don't go down the rabbit hole. But people were saying Candace is the one who murdered Charlie Kirk because she benefited. Now, when this happened, I said, well, the first beneficiary was obviously Trump. Trump, that they just released that that message that Trump sent Jeffrey Epstein on his birthday with the Trump and the pubic hair and the woman thing and the whole weird conversation. And it was creepy and it was weird and it was incriminating. And Trump is suing people about it, but he knows deep down that he did it. He wrote it. It's his thing. Everyone else does. And Trump was about to be fucked by that thing. And now they've kind of let it die and they should bring it back up, but, whatever. Enough people get the sense that Trump is covering this up. But in that, Charlie Kirk's assassination just changed the subject for a little bit. And that was, Trump was the big winner. And Israel's another winner, and Erika J. Kirk is another winner. Now, Candace Owens already had a lot of followers and views. You can comb through her page, but she's definitely, she's got Charlie's audience now, so she is a winner. But I always say you look at the winners, and maybe that's her being complicit. That's her role to play. I don't know. It's whatever it is. She's definitely a piece of shit. So. She's narcissistic and she likes the attention. She's obviously someone who likes the attention and she likes getting more views than Erika. I know they're in competition. You can see it. But either way, if you're saying that she killed Charlie Kirk, then you're saying that the official story isn't true. And if you're saying that the people who benefited from Charlie Kirk's, which I said initially, I said, all right, this is what you look at. Who benefits? And certainly Candace benefited. But who benefited more is Trump. Trump was, about to be fucked by the Epstein thing. And Israel, like Charlie Kirk was fucking them. And in the path that he was leading, it was going to, he was going to turn his army that they paid for, his TPUS gay army that they created, against Israel. So they couldn't have that shit, so they benefited. And of course, Erika J. Kirk is somebody who, she now has her thing that she has. She has time with her son. They had to get her involved. They couldn't leave her as a loose end. They had to get her to be complicit, which is something I've talked about in probably the last 5 videos, so I'm not going to talk about it here. And so they all benefited too. So if you're saying that the people who benefited from Charlie Kirk's death are responsible, then sure. And if Candace Owens is one of them, but she wasn't there at the place, and she didn't have the amount of money and resources to, it's silly. It's a silly fucking argument. But so is her argument that the French, that this whole thing, let's go through it again. It's an update. Both the White House and counterterrorism agencies have confirmed receipt of what reported earlier, what I reported publicly. Emmanuel Macron attempted to organize my assassination per source close to the first couple. Okay, so that is stupid, right? Because when Charlie Kirk died, and, even I think before that, the story about that dude's wife being a man that Candace Owens was, successful at putting out there was dead. Stories have a shelf life. And, it was out of Candace Owens' control. Anybody who picked it up in France, any of this that's going around in France, that has its life of its own. We don't know how much that's being talked about there. And whether they give a shit about it, right? The woman's 30 years older. She's his teacher. He was a student. So this is one of those scandals where a teacher, you see this all the time, on New York Post, where a teacher will have an affair with her student. There was that famous one where that woman had an affair with her student, and then she got out of prison, and they're now married, and they have kids. There's women who leave their husbands for some 13-year-old boy or some shit like that. And those women are, pretty much considered, not as bad as Jeffrey Epstein, but, they're considered pedophiles, in some way or another. It's a little bit, because it's some kind of weird, sort of genre of porn, some kind of MILF thing. So, they get a little bit less than, say, Jeffrey Epstein, but they're not respected. And certainly not by other women, and so, that's, that is whatever it is. It's a little bit less than a man being with a teenage girl, but it's still, on that level, right? And so whether they care about that in France or not, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how they feel about that, but she's like 30 years older than him or some shit like that. And if she's a dude on top of it, I don't know how much they care about that either. Like, this is liberal France, and, they do a lot of weird shit there. And, I mean, I know very little about it, but I've been through there a couple times. And I know that it's, we all know that Europe is much more liberal than America. And so that's, especially on these types of things. But whatever. But, the damage was done. And the time to assassinate Candace Owens was in the beginning of that thing. But they didn't. And so what happened was Charlie Kirk was killed, and then they decided to sue Candace Owens, which made no sense at all. The French, they tried to sue her because she had moved on to Charlie Kirk and was only occasionally talking about them. And the story had already been out there. Whenever there's a story like this, it goes out. It just goes out, right? And so other people pick it up. And then people just lose interest. Like, people have lost interest in Charlie Kirk already. Like, how many people give a shit about Brigitte Macron, right? And so by suing her, they reinvigorate the story, and they fucking know that, right? Like, they know that. Like, the best thing for them to do is just let the story die. And the French government, he's the president. He's not the fucking king. Like, he's not there forever. He's going to have to win another election. And so, killing her and risking fucking the wrath of the American government, like, they kill an American citizen. Like, if this comes down that France did try to assassinate Candace Owens, like, that's an act of war, right? Like, the right wing, all these people, Trump supporters. I mean, this is bad, right? This would be horrible, and it'd be really stupid of them to do that. Like, just stupid. If it comes out that they did, then it's a complete staged thing for whatever reason. Like, there's no way they do this, right? There's no way there'd be enough evidence that she would have it and she would get to it, and they wouldn't be successful. So that's just silly. It makes no sense. It makes no logical sense for them to do that. And the French government would be fucked, and the people would be wanting to hang those people for, I mean, all of Europe would be like the whole thing. You can't fucking do this and cause an international incident like that other woman said. It makes zero sense, right? And it also puts Candace, what's great for Candace, it puts her at the forefront, because then she said this. Also, again, I state the French Legionnaires were involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination, but they did not act alone. So she was including Israel there, right? But, like, that's her whole thing now. Like, she's got it and proved this is the French Legionnaires. That's where you fucking ended up. This is where you're going to end up. French Legionnaires on a Egyptian plane, with some kind of backing by Israel, and the American government let that happen, didn't find out. The American intelligence community didn't know about it. Of course they would have, right? And so, this is going nowhere. If this story comes out, like, if this story is confirmed in some way, then it fucks so many relationships. It's just bad in every level. And why did they kill Charlie Kirk? Why did the French kill Charlie Kirk? Because they were trying to get to Candace Owens? She was much easier to kill than he was. And, the whole thing about public execution, they don't have to shoot him in public. In fact, that's the worst way to do it. When he has security and there's, like, lots of people there. The only way that you do that is because you want everyone to see it. You want it to be performative, which is what it was. When Charlie Kirk got shot in the fucking neck, or there's gushing blood out of the neck, whether that's his exit wound or whatever they're saying, whether it's a hologram, whatever it is, everybody saw it, and then, no one gave a shit about Trump, and, it made this story take off, right? Like, that's what was, the being shot in public. If Charlie Kirk just died, somewhere we heard, he was shot, killed, and no one saw it, and there was no video, and it wasn't a public event like this where everyone the crowd goes running. Just like with Trump, if Trump isn't shot in front of people, like, that's what they do. It's, it's like something you see in a movie, that movie Snake Eyes, which we've covered, which was so, connected to Charlie Kirk thing. It makes it bigger, it makes it like a much bigger event, and it makes it, a much bigger story. And so, if they really wanted to murder these guys, they would do it just privately. There's just a person dead. And they usually can do it in a way where they'd be like, oh, this person committed suicide. Like how many times, when they really want to kill somebody, what do? They make it look like a suicide, right? And it might not look believable, but that's their story, and they'll stick to it. And like right now, everybody, the official story, and even people like Kash Patel, who's going to be fired by Trump, apparently, at least that's a story out there. All these pieces of shit are reversing their story and saying he did commit suicide, right? So, like, if somebody's murdered in public, it's done for a reason. It's done for it's not for like, oh, we want to kill that person. No, we want everyone to see we killed that person. We're sending a fucking message, right? And so it wouldn't be hard to kill Candace Owens. She doesn't have some big security detail. Like, anybody who's just sitting there, I mean, with a government, the French government couldn't put together quality assassins to make it look like Candace Owens committed suicide. Everyone would be like, no, she didn't. But it'd be like, so what, Okay, great. You don't believe it. Tough shit. What are you going to do about it? Right? Oh, you're saying she didn't commit suicide? Okay, great. What are you going to do? You guys going to riot? You guys going to... No, you're not going to do shit. You're going to post shit on the internet, just like with Jeffrey Epstein, and it'll be nothing, right? And so, this thing's a stupid story. But the big point is Candace Owens is making it about her. Like, makes it about her, and she loves that. Like, she clearly does. It's gone from the point where, like she was, oh, I'm just doing this for my friend Charlie, to, hey, everyone look at me. They wanted to kill me too, right? Like this, this is like her version of Ketchupgate. And, and we'll see how this plays out and how much, confirmation she gets. But all the energy, she's taken the energy, like it's like this energy was surrounding Erika Kirk, Erika Kirk does not have a good story arc. Erika Kirk is supposed to be the angelic, saintly, grieving widow who forgave the killer, the unconvicted killer, and, is promoting J.D. Vance and is, now the CEO of this company and the good mom. And, people don't want to see that shit, right? People don't want to see people who are, saints. They don't even want real saints, never mind fake ones. And so there's no drama. Like Candace Owens brings the drama, right? She says, I want war with all you people. She's going to war with TPUSA. She's the one who's driving this story right now. She's the one who's like, the villain to some and the hero to others. Like she's the Trump in this thing, right? She's where all the energy is. Like Candace Owens is like the Hillary Clinton or the Kamala Harris or somebody. She's just, she's a one-trick pony. She's got one storyline. And so Candace Owens has successfully taken over Turning Point. Like Turning Point is now Candace Owens' show. For all of you who doubted my claims, you can now look at President of the United States and our intelligence community to issue a statement to confirm whether I'm telling the truth. Well, why would they do that? So if they do that, that's like, that's a whole other story. But, it's no longer, Candace Owens has lost whatever credibility. This idea that she was somehow just great friends with Charlie Kirk and she loved him so much and she's doing everything in power to bring about he disavowed her. He kicked her out of Turning Point because he was his, because of the shekel givers told him, hey, get rid of Candace Owens. And somehow she still was friends with them. And, even though she's so vindictive and she's always going after people like that, not Charlie Kirk. So I was looking at her page here. And I was trying, so that came in last night and I sent it to my wife so I would have it. It was on my phone, but sometimes I also have the messages on my computer, which I'm not sure how that works. They're connected in some way. And so this person says, posted this, holy shit, the Officer Tatum now says he's seen the evidence regarding the assassination threat of Candace Owens. Brandon Tatum says he's convinced he believes that needs to be serious consequences for the French government. This is insane. Okay, so this piece of shit, let's switch over here.
Then, brother, the American government, I don't care how much you don't like Candace, I don't care how much you've been trashing the American government and the FBI, they got to do something.
Okay, so this is one of the biggest shekel takers out there. He just was licking Israeli taint, Netanyahu taint there. He brought Netanyahu on his show recently, the Officer Tatum show. Former officer, he's making this thing about being a cop. But he, for some reason, when I searched it, he doesn't really criticize Candace. So I don't know what their relationship is. But he doesn't criticize her, even though like he was going after all the people, kind of hinting at Candace, but going after all the people who weren't accepting the official story. So this guy has reversed course because he went on TPUSK and these other places saying, stop, I've seen the evidence that this is the official story is true. This guy did it. And he was totally on board with, and he brought in Netanyahu, and he's gone to Israel multiple times, and he's taken shekels. He's clearly sheckled up, right? And so for him to come out now and say this.
And I'm going to tell you what they will do. It doesn't matter right, wrong, or indifferent. They have to investigate this. They have to investigate this. And I think that if it is found to be true and the proof prevails, which I'm convinced, after talking to Candace and the stuff that we talked about, I'm convinced, then that means that there should be dire consequences for the French government and whoever else was involved, the Macrons or whatever, dire consequences. I'm talking about the American government should go after them like never before.
Wait, when did they go after them before? Like the French-American War? What's the last time we've gone after France, right? The French have had a problem with America in various ways. And I saw this when I go to these gatherings. When I went to India, in Chennai, India, which used to be called the Madras, it's in the southern part, and Master Charji was from there. It's where a lot of Brahmins are from. It's the state of Tamil. The Brahmins are, people who are like, they're doctors and they're gurus and they're politicians and they're an elite class there. Not the, there's different kinds of elite classes, but Brahmins are one of them in certain southern India. And Master Charji was a Brahmin. A lot of them tend to be spiritual. And, that's not important to this thing. But there was people that came from all over the world. Like someone from Madagascar, which is a place that I always noticed when I played the game Risk. We used to call it the little island of Madagascar. It was a place there in the African continent. And then I was kind of interested later on with the animal life there. But I met this guy, and he was the first guy to buy my book when I handed the book to Master Charji, and all these people watched him put his hand on it and bless it, and whatever he did there. I have a picture of it, but I'm not going to put it up here. And then all these people came running up and wanted to buy my book. It was all about truther stuff. The book, my book, The Choice. And I wrote a book, My Friend Within, which is a better book, which is a kid's board book about God being inside. About God being inside of all of us and everything. But anyways, I digress. But there's people from all over the world. And a lot of people from Europe, and the European people were everyone loved the Danish people. And Babaji loved he went to Denmark like twice, and he just loved the Danish people. Babaji, the second master. There's an ashram there. And the woman who does these messages, Whispers of the Brighter World, was from France. And there's a lot of good Abhyasis from France, and some of them are kind of cool and nice. But, some of them, like you could tell, had an attitude towards Americans, right? And, there was, I forget the guy's name, but when they made America the world reserve currency, there was a French president who was pissed when he saw the Americans taking advantage of just printing money and doing in Vietnam what he couldn't. Remember, the French were in Vietnam before the Americans. They were trying to get something out of there. Of course, there's the poppy fields there and things like that. But whatever reason the French were there, they got their asses handed to them. That's why you have French Vietnamese food, right? That whole thing that happened. Because French, food became, influenced the Vietnam food, and they have that, French Vietnamese cuisine, which is one of the more popular cuisines, the sort of, restaurants and things like that. But this guy, and again, his name begins with, it's like CH something. Don't tell me, don't care, don't need to know. Somebody left a comment saying that they say that to the woman says it to her husband and kids. The reason I say it is, the origin of don't tell me, don't care, don't need to know, was I made a mistake when I was making I used to make these Full House videos about how demonic Full House was, and all the fucking weird sexual stuff and all the devil worshipping stuff on the show. And there's lots of it. It was just fucking creepy. I made about 6 to 10 videos on Full House. This was back when I was in India, was just about to come back to America. And these videos got hundreds of thousands of views. I think some of them got millions. And they were whatever. Bob Saget and all those creeps over there. And there was a video about, they were all, Bob Saget and these other people were telling this joke about the aristocrats. And it's a really, debauched joke. It's a really gross, sexual, perverted joke. And all these comedians tell the joke. They all have comedians tell it to each other. They have this thing, and it's called The Aristocrats. And they made a movie about it. Those guys, Penn and Teller, the one who speaks, Penn, I guess his name is, and he's a real Satanist, demonic piece of shit too. And he said Bob Saget was the worst of the worst. But in that, there was this guy, Michael McKean, but I called him Christopher Guest by mistake. Michael McKean was on Better Call Saul, Saul's brother, and before that he was on Laverne and Shirley. And Christopher Guest was, an English actor, and somehow I confused him. And this video got so many views, and years fucking later, people would tell me, no, that isn't Michael McKean, that's Christopher Guest. And more recently, I was talking about Calvary, and people say, no, it's not Calvary, it's Calvary, the mountain in which Jesus was crucified on. And I'm like, well, that's, because of Calvary Christian Church. But I'm like, fuck, I only needed one person to tell me. I got 100 comments. You guys can go look at the video. Like everyone, people love to tell you when you make a mistake, or even if they're trying to be helpful. I don't need 100 comments on it. I need one. People hear something like, oh, I'm going to go tell them. I'm like, this video's 2 fucking years old. You don't think I've heard this 100 fucking times, 200 times already, right? So when I say, don't tell me, don't care, don't need to know, I could go Google it, right? I could stop, I don't want to break what I'm saying, even though I just did for this story. I just want to complete this thought here. And I could stop it and Google it and come back, which sometimes I do. But I'm not going to do it. But anyways, there's this French leader, and he pulled all the gold away from the American. There was French gold being stored in American banks because America had the world reserve currency. So all of Europe agreed about this, and then Jesus, the guy from Nixon's Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, the famous Henry Kissinger, he came up with the petrodollar. It was Charles de Gaulle Airport. I flew into Charles de Gaulle Airport, right? But Charles de Gaulle had a problem with America, as did the French. And, there's European countries that don't like Americans in America. I saw this video where this woman an English woman was saying that, it was one of the things that YouTube recommended, that you guys in America wish to be in England. And there's some, fringe people who would love to go and live in England, right? There's some Americans. But she said, everybody in England wants to go live in America. Everyone dreams of, they watch American movies and they watch these TV shows and they want to go to Saved by the Bell. They want to have the American life, right? She says like everybody there does. And there's this element of it. There's a jealousy of American lifestyle. I saw this with, there was this, first time I went to India, there was this Russian girl and we became friends, and she clearly was resentful for me being American. There's this idea that people think being American is so great and, whatever, or, but there's a little bit of the arrogance and USA, and, all that shit, right? And, the Olympics where Steph Curry hit those shots over, in the the Paris Olympics, this past thing. There's just, there's this thing about Americans, right? And, I noticed it when I went through the airport. There were some things there, like when I traveled through, France, whatever it was. But anyways, this thing that's there would be catastrophic, like this, if this was a real story. And if this is a real story, you can forget about Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA. Like Candace Owens will have totally usurped them. She would have kicked fucking Erika Kirk right in the fucking face, right? You know, or somewhere else, Trump style. Like it would have been it's just so bad. Like this would be horrible. It would be like a kind of a thing that could spiral into the World War III type of shit, right? Whatever it is, it would have catastrophic consequences. I'm very aware of this. The whole system is fucked. This is a demonic system, and it's going to die of its own accord, right? Like I don't need to kill it. Not that I could, but I don't need to. It's already dying of its own depravity. Right? I don't need to do anything about it. You don't need to do anything about it. Like it's a bad system, and then you just have to navigate your place in it. How to not get sucked into the depravity, the best that you can. And, ultimately the message here on this channel, find divinity within you, and there's the Sajmark system, which was given as an antidote to, it's given for this particular time in history as an antidote to what's going on now, and then to build something better in the future. And it helps people connect to divinity within them because of the divine love energy that's given through the transmission, and the cleaning process that helps to cleanse your, the things that are blocking your connection to the divinity within you. And people don't want it, fine, whatever it is. Like this is, going back to Erika J. Kirk. When, you take the role of a divine solution, people's egos don't want that shit, right? So when you pretend to be a saint like Erika Kirk is, playing this goofy role, people aren't going to gravitate to that when they got all this drama with Candace Owens, right? But anyways, I'm very aware of that there are stories out there that if the American people got slapped in the face with them and the sheeple had nowhere to go with it, I just saw something where Tucker Carlson put a tweet out saying, people are losing faith in the dollar, and he was pitching gold, like selling gold like Alex Jones. Not that gold is gold. But, the way these guys push that out there, like, if the dollar collapses, we're all going to have gold, right? We're all going to use gold as a currency, right? If the dollar collapses, it'll be a fucking nightmare. Like everything will implode. I mean, there'll be, just horrific kind of shit going on. Like it'll be apocalyptic. It won't be, okay, let's everyone just, bring your gold in and buy your cheeseburger at McDonald's, right? Like it's not going to be, there won't be anything. Like, if you have to, use precious metals, go back to being the currency, that means that $2 quadrillion of wealth has disappeared. I mean, there's not that much gold in the world. It's not enough to use it as a currency. And of course, you can't spend gold digitally, right? It's physical. I mean, so none of these things. It's not, if the economy collapses, it collapses. But either way, I'm aware of, I don't need to make sure everybody hears a story. Not that I have any of them, because nobody listens to me anyway. I can say whatever I want, and I have no effect on it. But if you're going to put a story out there that would bring down the American government, the world government, you need to think twice about doing that. Now, people aren't going to buy it, and they have ways of squishing it, so it's okay. But this is the kind of story that, if it is true, I mean, if, Trump is compromised, and let's say we find out that Israel, France, and Trump all were complicit in killing Charlie Kirk, then think about what it would do to all these dumb fucks. Think about all the dumb fucks out there, all the Trumpers, and just how that would affect everything, right? Like it would just, all these people spiraling. You know how it was when you first woke up? And then all those people losing complete faith in the government, the country, and, this whole relationship with Israel and everything, and all these relationships. America's relationship with Europe and France, America's relationship with Israel, all these this parasitic relationship. If that folded and all this thing fell apart, think about that, what that would do to people. So, I mean, it's, whatever. Well, whatever way this plays out, it plays out. But all it can do is destroy. Like, all it can do is destroy America. And, I mean, Candace Owens now is just, I mean, she's just out there. She's such a look at me person. And it's gotten that bad. And if this piece of shit shill is involved, he's very, like, this guy doesn't, he's not validating things because he's. I mean, if I've covered this guy being so shackled up by Israel, so if he's pushing this thing and then other people jump on board and they push for it, they're doing like Tucker Carlson. Then people like that. If they all say this is true, then I mean, and this becomes a national fucking story, then the implications are, epic. And it's still bullshit, right? This isn't truth coming out. This is just another bullshit psychological operation. Me and my wife returned from Costco a while ago. I took a nap. I woke up early because my dog was yapping at the door around 6. Not yapping, but whining. So I didn't sleep as long as I should have. And my wife and I had planned to go to Costco because she wanted to get some shelves, and I forgot a few things that we did for Thanksgiving. We have some kind of privileged, we can get in an hour early thing. I think we got some kind of a deal. The guy didn't think I had to, because I don't present like someone would have the executive membership at Costco. I was telling my wife, it's kind of weird because you know how many times, and I've said this before, people call me boss, right? Thanks, but I'll go to frickin' Chipotle or like some store, and the person, I'll ask for help, and some guy will call me boss, which I think is usually an insult because, I am not a boss because I'm not good at administration, right? I'm not an administrator, and I've never really been a boss, and I don't really have boss energy, but, whatever. So we were joking about that. But anyways, so I was doing various things, trying to work my way back to finishing this video so I can, I put the turkey in the sous vide, the SOUSVIDBE. I put the legs in, and tomorrow I'll cook the breast for like 5 hours, and the wings for last time, but the legs we cook for 24 hours. Anyway, so I, YouTube recommended a couple videos from people that were liberals that were slamming Trump because, amongst other things, this thing with Candace Owens, but other people. So MAGA's imploding, right? And we'll get into that in just a bit. I want to switch over to voiceover in a second. This thing between Erika, Kirk, and they're having like a crazy off. And so Candace Owens, according to this person, said that, she said this, because I found it.
And Brigitte Macron, strangely, and Emmanuel mentioning MK Ultra in the lawsuit to us 18 times struck us as odd as we were trying to determine whether or not it could have been Brigitte Macron that was involved in that Stanford experiment, this prisoner, 2093, that was being protected. We didn't know why this prisoner was being protected. We sent somebody there. There seemed to be more.
Okay, so it's weird if they actually did mention MK Ultra in their lawsuit. Why would they do that? That's fucking weird. If that actually has happened, why the fuck would they do that? The Stanford experiment, if you're not aware of it, it shows Stockholm Syndrome. So there was, and I have a background in counseling. I have a master's degree in counseling, so I understand the implications of this thing a little bit more than the average person. So Stanford decided to do an experiment where they were going to have some of the students be guards, and some of the students be prisoners, right? And the faculty was going to be the management, and the guy who was in charge of the psychological experiment was going to be the warden. And within 6 days, it got so fucked up that, the kids started to think of themselves as prisoners. The guards started to abuse them and the other students, and the people who were supposed to be running the experiment got into it so much that the guy who was the warden, the guy who was chief of the experiment, was talking to a colleague. This colleague came into the office, and he was sitting there looking at his colleague who wasn't involved in the experiment, and he was saying, to get this motherfucker out of here. I got a prison break because there's a rumor that there's going to be a prison break. And, so they all got into it so fucking much that it was like, it was disturbing. It took just 6 days. We know about Stockholm Syndrome. And it takes about, like I've talked about this in the past, like if you go work at a restaurant, it takes you about 6 days to integrate, 7 days into it, like a week, to integrate into the team. Or whatever it might be, a place of work, and then all of a sudden you're using the lingo. I mean, you might see this with your friends and family. They get into something, and immediately they start changing the way they talk. I'm not even talking about something like Scientology, but it could be some kind of a group. It could be even fantasy football, and they become like a different person because that's how quickly it happens. But for her to imply here, and again, if the Macron's mentioned in the lawsuit MK Ultra 17 times, that's weird. Government has admitted to having these MK Ultra mind control experiments. The government was doing mind control experiments on people. The government has done multiple experiments on people. It's fucked up over the years. I mean, there's been all this kind of experimentation using people as like fucking, guinea pigs or rats or whatever. And so that's weird. That's bad in itself, right? But on top of that, if she's implying that this Brigitte Macron here.
And what really terrifies me is that if my inclination that Xavier Poussard's messages have been being read and tracked for longer than
So that's about that. But if she's thinking that she's one of these, like Brigitte Macron is one of these people in this experiment, that happened years ago, and then somehow she was a French person, like what the fuck? Like these were like California hippies. I'm not sure when it took place, the 70s, I think. I could check the dates. So Brigitte Macron was 25 years older than her husband. And she was 18 or so when the Stanford experiment took place. So it's possible based on age, but it just sounds fucking crazy, right? When you start talking about Egyptian planes and MK Ultra and, you bring in multiple different countries that are involved, the more complex something is, you don't need all that shit. You need one fucking assassin. You need one hitman. You need one quality sniper, maybe a team around him, right? A cleanup team, something like that you're going to pull off. That's to say that Charlie Kirk was actually shot in front of everybody. Again, which is a statement they're making just like with JFK, right? When they do it in front of everybody, it's a statement. I have this meme. I'll put that meme up right after I do this voiceover. And so a few more things I want to get to. I'm not going to make this video too long, given it's Thanksgiving. But, I won't make a video again I'm not going to make a video on Black Friday just because that's the schedule now. And I'll start again on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and take Wednesday off, I think. I'm not sure how it goes. I think it's three days on, 1 day off is how it works here. The morning, the afternoon, and then nighttime videos. And then, you get the rest of it. But anyways, what I want to talk about, this has devolved into a crazy off between Erika J. Kirk and Candace Owens. Now, first of all, in terms of Trump's MAGA base, he's lost all kinds of people. They've all gone south on him. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene over the Epstein files and a little bit on Israel. He's about to possibly fire Kash Patel, which I'll get to in a short video in a moment. And then, that's the things I guess I'll cover the rest of this stuff. But it's possible he might fire Kash Patel. At least he should, because Kash Patel is a fucking disaster, right? And then Tucker Carlson's gone south on Israel. Megyn Kelly a little bit south on Israel, right? On Trump. And, who else has he lost, right? He's got these other people. The MAGA is imploding. Like some of the central figures in MAGA is imploding, and there's a battle between the people who want the Epstein files out, the people that are against Israel, and then the rest of Trump dopes that will always stick by him no matter what the fuck he does because they're just fucking morons, right? And so, the Republican Party is imploding. And Erika J. Kirk is just fucking crazy. When she talks about the enemy, this is the stuff with Candace Owens and Erika Kirk. It's for very select people. There's people they're not going to go that far down the fucking rabbit hole. They're just not. Like, they might, you lose them anyway. It gets too complex for their ability to comprehend what you're talking about. And the crazier it sounds, the more you delegitimize other parts of your argument and things that you're saying, right? Now, if the French government comes out and they're going to verify all this stuff, they're doing it on purpose. You're going to think the truth community won something and Candace Owens is a hero, but she's fucking not. Because there's no way they would risk the whole thing imploding by having the French government and the president of the French government order a hit on an American social media influencer that was friends with Trump. I mean, the way that Americans considered the French as like surrender monkeys, I think that's the term they used. I'm not sure. Surrender something, right? Was it surrender monkeys? I don't know. Let me ask ChatGTP. ChatGTP, did Americans used to refer to French soldiers as surrender monkeys in World War II? It says no. I heard something different. Okay, so ChatGTP sucks because even as I Googled it, this is from The Simpsons.
Groundskeeper Willie teaching French.
Bonjour, you cheese-eating surrender monkeys.
Groundskeeper Willie, who's Scottish, is calling them cheese-eating surrender monkeys. And so, but anyways, the French soldiers and men were throwing their women at the Americans for coming and rescuing them. And there's all these jokes about it in World War II. And so you think that the French president would have the balls to come over and murder Charlie Kirk and, come on, like fucking stupid. Like that's just fucking stupid. So if Israel was going to kill somebody to show Trump that they had the power to kill somebody like Charlie Kirk to warn him, but they didn't have to do that. Trump already was going to give them whatever they wanted. So, I'm sure that he was on board. Like if they were all going to do that, foreign governments, it would have to be a joint effort. And so that shit can't come out. Like, it comes out that Trump murdered Charlie Kirk. I mean, that would basically be the end of the fucking America as you now know it, right? In terms of people losing faith and panicking and, who God knows what's going to happen here. And who knows what the plan is, right? Maybe that's what they want. I don't know. We'll see how it unfolds. But it's not believable. It's crazy shit, right? It's illogical, crazy shit. And it clearly isn't something that Candace Owens caught them trying to assassinate her and caught them, the French government with their Egyptian planes and their ties to Israel and Trump and all this other bullshit that she's throwing out there, going down the rabbit hole. It just sounds fucking crazy, right? And her just, the way that she presents herself. Now, Erika Kirk with her weird fucking, and again, for Candace Owens, that's a specific group of people that like to go down the rabbit hole. These Cubies who like to follow the QAnon fucking drops and, the Q drops and all that kind of weird shit. And they like sensationalistic thing. They like sensationalistic fucking conspiracies that have wrecked the truth community. And then you have Erika Kirk that's pandering to these Christian evangelicals with her talk about the enemy's trying to get me and that she wears magical clunky jewelry to ward off the enemy. Like, what the fuck, right? Like, it's a certain group of people that are getting more specified in the, the whole thing that's happening, right? In terms of this, this is a battle between Candace Owens and Erika Kirk. Make no mistake about it. Whether they're both in on it, and they're actually actresses that are pals, which I severely doubt. They're battling over the same audience. And Candace Owens is eviscerating them. Because even if they don't like Candace Owens, all these people commenting are backing her worldview. And they are, going after TPUSK because of their inability to stand up for Charlie. And that means Erika Kirk who's running that, right? And Candace Owens, she gets more comments. I was looking at their video. She had over almost 16,000 comments. That's like twice as many views as many of the videos on TPUSK. She's getting more comments than they're getting fucking views, right? And she's getting comments over on TPUSK that are really Candace comments. And so it's a fucking disaster on every level over there. And she's, killing it. And so this is a battle between two crazy bitches, right? I mean, they're both pitching an extreme crazy worldview. And, neither one of them is really being backed by the establishment. Erika J. Kirk is pushing the official story, but it isn't, that part of it isn't, registering. But she's I mean, she's so fucking weird, and she's not connecting with people as well as Candace Owens. So, I mean, this is like, this is what this is degraded to or degenerated into, right? So fuck ChatGTP for saying no to that. Coined by American television writer and producer Ken Keeler in 1995 for the television show The Simpsons, derives from the stereotype of the French being quick to surrender and the fact that cheesy is a delicacy in France. Oh, maybe he was saying because I said World War II. So, it's post-World War II. But you'll get the idea. This was what was thought about of the French people. I'm not going to get to Tucker Carlson reacts to these rifles and stuff on that fucking show with Sean Ryan. I'll cover that, for Saturday. I'm looking at some of the stuff here. But anyways, I'm going to, cover a few of these other things in a moment. So you see that this is where we're at with this story. It's become about Candace versus Erika. And, Erika has the establishment. She has the financial backing of Israel. But she has little else, right? Like, it's imploding. She's got a failing business and ever shrinking influence. In fact, she doesn't really have any influence. All the influence died when Charlie Kirk did. And he was already losing his influence because as much as he wanted to change his opinion on Israel, and if they had let him do that, which of course they wouldn't, he was still on the hook for saying shit like Egypt and some of these other countries over in the Middle East, like Jordan, should take in all these Palestinians and they should be, pushed out of their country because it really all belonged to Israel in the first place because it says so in the Old Testament, right? Like I know when I say things here in terms of, the Old Testament stuff and talking about the Bible, it's hard for people to accept because they've never heard it before. And even if you're not a Christian, it's hard to hear, if you grew up as a Christian, it's a little bit easier. But you hear this kind of stuff, and it's like, it's so indoctrinated into you that the Bible's the Word of God, and it's just not. I mean, it's not that great of a spiritual book. Even the New Testament is like, not really a spiritual book. It's, very kindergarten in its expression of divine concepts. It's like, not bad. Kindergarten's still good. It's not like it's, there's things in there that are like not cool, but most of it is, okay. And it's, teaches spiritual principles you'll find pretty much in every religion, boilerplate stuff, but it isn't the Word of God. It isn't really even the word of Jesus. It's some people it's hearsay of Jesus, right? It's disciples talking about their story of Jesus, right? There's a book in Sage Marg literature that's called Tears and Laughter. And all of these practitioners, what are called Abhyasis that do the meditation, wrote about the second master Babaji and wrote about their interactions with him and, how he helped them and, what he was to them. And it's kind of the least good book in the whole mission, right? It's an okay book. It has some interesting things. And there's a couple of books. There's a Danish guy who wrote a couple of books about his time in India with Babaji, and some of it was about Charji, and that was an interesting book. And Charji wrote a book about Babaji, and another guy wrote a book about Charji, and those books are better books. But they're still not as good as the books that come, or the talks and the books that come directly from the masters themselves, right? Like the unfiltered, not going through the lens of another person. And so, that's what the Bible does. But, when I say these things, it's hard for Christians to accept, right? It's hard for them to think that Jesus was just a spiritual guy that wasn't really all that evolved. He died young, and, he basically was as much of a social reformer as he was a spiritual person. And that he, there's been many, many people who have gone farther than him down the spiritual path. Like, it's hard for people to accept that, right? And Christians, especially white European and American Christians, think that because, especially the American ones, think because America kicks ass and we're a Christian country that God is blessing us and it shows the power of the Christian religion, and it's not the case, right? We have spiritual depravity here. People are not very spiritual. But we kick ass militarily, and we have money, and we have a nice lifestyle. But we have, we're lacking in spirituality. It's just that simple. But people can't hear that, and I know that, and I don't give a shit, because it's not, I don't care if people come and go, this is what I have to offer. It's truth, and, It's not my problem. You can't rise up to it, right? But these people are trying to win over large population, large demographics. Erika J. Kirk and Trump and all these other people, and Candace and the rest of them. And their message is falling on deaf ears, and it gets stupider and stupider because it gets harder and harder for people to believe it. One more thing here. I was talking to my wife about this when we were in Costco, or when we were driving there. And, women are crazy and men are stupid. Like, women have to find a way to tolerate the stupidity of men, right? Like women who have to figure out ways to tolerate the stupidity of their husbands. And men have to deal with the craziness of women. Women have, hormonal swings and, their hearts are already activated. Like men have to learn to love, but women are based in, their being the mothers, being moms. They have a natural predisposition to love and they're more emotional. And so, there's the crazy side on the women and it's not, not that men aren't crazy at times and women aren't stupid, but there's like a specific difference. Like I say about how the right wing, the people that control the right wing use fear to create anger, and the people that control the left wing use anger to create fear, right? So there's these two different type of ways that they have of dealing with these groups of people, right? But either way, the craziness has to be, mitigated. And, people are looking for stability, and it's hard for them to grasp any of these types of, conspiracies. And then when they get really like down the rabbit hole, like, putting the shit up on a wall with string and shit, you start losing people. And then it's almost impossible. I mean, you're never going to get any kind of backing from the official story. So then it just becomes like a waste of fucking time, right? As interesting as it can be, when you're talking about fucking Egyptian planes and we're talking about the enemy, it's just like, all right, like there's nothing to see here anymore. You're just like, you've gone south. Even if there's some truth in what you're saying, it doesn't fucking matter. Anyways, let's go to these other things here. Okay, so I see it. I'm already at 2 hours. Do as I told you or else. Remember, this is, there's a bit of that comedian and I can't remember his name. It's the guy that everybody says that Alex Jones, Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks has this bit. Everyone says that Bill Hicks turned into Alex Jones, which I don't believe, but it's out there, right? Just like everything else. Bill Hicks had this bit where he said, when you become a new president, you come into this room with a bunch of shadowy figures. You really can't see their faces, and they're like smoking cigars. And you walk into the room, and they show you a angle of JFK getting shot that shows that there's another shooter. And they say to you, after they show you the video, the screen comes down, they show you a video. I'm butchering the joke, but you get the idea. And the guy says, you got any questions to the new president? And the president says, yeah, what's my agenda? What am I supposed to do? Because like they're showing him, yeah, we can kill you, right? So this is to do with that. He's probably on the Epstein list. He's probably on the Epstein list. They would be on together, though, actually. Or maybe not. So let's end with that, and I'll probably be doing some comments here in a bit. My wife just was running some errands, and we're going to go out and take a walk, and I'll see. It's windy, so I'll get out. I mean, we're having like 25, 30 mile an hour winds out there. Just in case you were worried. Anyway, let's see if there's any comments or whatever. I'll wrap this up one way or another.
I'm so glad I'm not you.
So, this should go in the beginning of some video. I got to remember to say these things over and over again because, people forget stuff and then new people come to the channel. And there's primary things that I've learned from, life and certainly the Sajmark system that are helpful to people. But, this is just something new. It has nothing to do with any of that. But there's just an observation. It seems like what they want to do now is divide these groups into more and more subgroups, right? And so TPUSA, which was a fringe group that, if they swung 1% in a vote in a swing state, like they would be credited for helping with that swing state, but it's only 1%. The youth that Trump was able to bring in this past election based in their bullshit, it could be just they're making shit up, right? But according to the official story, and TPUSK was a part of that, it's 1%, but you break that into 3 different fractions of group of people, right? So like we have all these coalitions, right? Like what happens when the L's realizes that the T's and the LGBTQs are like kind of their enemies, right? Like that's the lesbians and the transgenders are kind of really they should be enemies based in they have conflicting needs and things like that. And so what you're going to see is more and more of these groups, the liberals and the moderate Democrats, and then just subgroups within the truth community, more and more subgroups. And they've been doing that, and then you can never really get a majority. That's what they have when they have more than one political party in these different places. You never really get a majority or a mandate, and it's you get the idea. And so you see this now with these 2 witches going at each other, and and Candace Owens right now is winning big, but she's she's in Neverland right now. She's in whatever this place is called with Alice in Wonderland, whatever that place is. That's not Neverland. That's but she's going down the rabbit hole. Anyways, let me go check out, see if there's any comments worth addressing here. Okay, so I just read some comments, mostly funny ones. Just going to be a short little thing here, and then I wanted to say 2 things. One, I just put you guys just saw the meme, I'm so glad I'm not you. I'm so glad I'm not you. She's so annoying. Like if, she wasn't somebody who brought views in, it'd just be like he's just so easy to ignore her. But, eventually, inevitably, we can. And so, one of the great things about Thanksgiving is if you can do it as a family or do it privately, but just it's a good time to remember to be grateful and think about the things you're grateful for. Like it's good to do that every day, but certainly if you just start off with Thanksgiving, that's a good thing. So just going to go in order in which these comments came in. Erika, this person quoted Erika. Erika, sigh. The Lord is so powerful. And Paul, oh fuck. And the person had some laughing emojis. The reason I said oh fuck is, this was a question on why didn't his medals protect him, his cross and his whatever it is, St. Michael's medal or whatever. And then she got into her gaudy big jewelry and how that protects you. I'm like, that doesn't protect you. And so you can always protect your heart with God. Like that's the one thing you can do. If you're thinking about God, God can protect your heart. You're inevitably going to die, so it isn't like you can be immortal and God's going to protect you from every, the best thing you can do is just submit to God's will, but also you can do things to sort of ward off whatever it is, negativity and things like this, by just being intentional about it, wrapping people in a bubble of love. It's better when you do it for other people, but also just think that God's, the constant remembrance practice from Saj Marg, which you think God is doing your work, doing whatever you're doing. You think, it's God doing this video, not me. Like that's, and it's a good way to protect you from your own ego. But, the thing is that the way that they're very materialistic, these types of Christians. Christianity is a more materialistic religion now. It wasn't what Jesus was teaching was the opposite, but now it's very materialistic. And so people think that when bad things happen, you're not right with Jesus or you're not protected by the Lord or whatever the bullshit thing. But the reality is for their religion, all the great saints suffered immensely and just in general, not, you don't have to be tortured. Like the Christian religion is specific about the blood and the crucifixion and embracing the crucifixion was, I mean, it wasn't, they had a crucifixion problem, and so they tried to spin it, and now everyone celebrates Jesus' crucifixion. They shouldn't, right? But you don't have to be crucified, but you're always going to be, the path of a spiritual person is always a difficult one, and the higher you get, the more that you're elevated, the harder it is. Anyways, but her saying that shit, it's just so fucking fake. Everything that she does is just so fake. Somebody said your parents seem like they were totally lame brains. I'm grateful for your mediocrity. We got Paul effing Romano. Yeah, I'm grateful for my parents as well because, well, specifically, I'm grateful for all the ways things turned out for me, especially the spiritual stuff. Like at the end of your life, no matter what happens, if like you see that you're making progress and you've gone through various stages of, you have these developmental milestones like potty training and learning how to speak and learning how to walk and learning how to talk and doing those things when you're a toddler, and then these various milestones as you go through life. There's like you get married, you have kids, then there's people kind of stop evolving. But there's various stages, and there comes a stage where you could see that the light at the end of the tunnel, and now you're preparing to leave this world. And then if you feel good spiritually, then everything else is like makes it worth it, right? And I feel that way. My parents sucked though, and they weren't like abusive. Like my dad tried to, hit me with a belt one time. I started laughing at him, So I don't consider that abuse. And we made fun of each other a lot, and that probably was, I guess people would call it emotional abuse, but I didn't dislike it, so it wasn't any of that stuff. It was just how fucking incompetent my parents were. And I have so many stories, but before I got married to my ex, we were both doing the Sajmark meditation in New Mexico. And my mom loved it there. She broke down. They were driving from California. I guess my dad was stationed. He never fought in World War II, but he was stationed somewhere like in New Jersey, and then eventually he went to California or something. I'm not sure what happened. My mom said she felt sorry for him. I don't know what the fuck, right? But somehow they were coming from California, and they were driving through New Mexico. And the car broke down, and my mom just loved it there. And so she went back there for some Catholic retreat thing. And, my parents were mostly from New Jersey. That's where they grew up. Again, I'm not, I should know more about this, but I didn't really listen to them when they were talking. But my, my mom, I said that we were going to have a spiritual gathering. There's a preceptor in Phoenix, and, he was a young young Indian guy with a lot of energy. And there was about 3 or 4 practitioners of Sajmark system, and my ex and her family. She was married at the time, the whole thing. And me, she was in Albuquerque and I was in Santa Fe. And, it was my idea, like, let's have a gathering at the Grand Canyon because it's fucking the Grand Canyon. I'd never been. But, part of the things was for Sajmark, kids were often just, at these gatherings with nothing to do. And I thought having one at a place like the Grand Canyon, since there was nobody doing Sajmark in that corner of the Four Corners area, Phoenix, Arizona, New Mexico, is it Utah, and what am I missing here? It must be Colorado, right? So there's these 4 corners, and there was that region, and they had broken up the country into various regions, and there was only the 3 preceptors and like, maybe 10 practitioners of the meditation. So my ex was basically in the, decoupling, breaking up process with her her ex-husband, and they were going through it. She was looking for, she always overlapped, like, the people who light cigarettes with cigarettes. Like, she always found another guy before ditching the other guy. Like, she went from high school, she only had like a 6-month period from high school until, now, going forward, where she wasn't with a guy. Like, she was, she was sexually abused. She was fucked up. So she always had to find another guy before she could, ditched the last one. She did it. She did it to her ex and then did it to me. You know, I think she's too old to do it anymore, but whatever. So, so there was that aspect of it. And then my parents came down, and we went to Flagstaff. We went to like the Painted Desert. We're driving through, these Gallup in New Mexico, these places, coming from Albuquerque. And we're like, 15, 20 minutes away from the place. And we stopped to go to the bathroom and maybe, something else. I have a picture of it. I'm not going to put it here, but usually I would. And my mom opened the trunk of a rental car, put her keys in the trunk, and then fucking closed the trunk door. And, it was just brought back all the fucking frustration of the incompetence. Like, I'm like, are you fucking shitting me, right? We're like 15 minutes away from the Grand fucking Canyon. You guys got to fucking, just, like, can you just not, right? And anyways, I ended up getting kind of sick, which was typical of these gatherings, which is called cleaning. And so, whatever. And the whole thing happened. And I was driving back with my ex, and her husband went with my parents. It was like a whole thing, and then the car broke down. The fucking transmission melted, and there was a whole process there, and the rest is fucking history. But my parents were just like, they just were incompetent a lot, like almost criminally. And so, it's kind of funny now. My brother and I used to joke about it, and and then it's but then now we don't really talk, so it's just me talking about it here. A person writes, all I want for Christmas, and with the Christmas tree emoji, is a lot of fucking shekels, Paul. Heart with 2 laughing things. I don't know. Can you get shekels for Christmas? Is that like in your stocking, you get some fucking coal and an orange and some shekels? What are shekels made of, right? I wonder what material shekels are made of. Like fool's gold. Unleavened fool's gold, right? So anyways, I'm going to ask ChatGTP. 30 pieces. So they made out of silver, 30 pieces of silver. Remember that. So that makes sense. So then this one, Bridget McCrome's Masad Nads. I'll always get a chuckle when you can somehow work in Nads into a comment. Paul, I used your phrase, don't tell me, don't care, don't need to know. My husband and kids, LOL. OBL had a Viking funeral given by Obama's orders. Osama bin Laden, remember? Yeah. Bakersfield, California is extremely conservative, hence it's big to do for Megyn Kelly to make an appearance. Yeah, I forget about Bakersfield. There's a nice part of California where the farming is, and I think Bakersfield is in that area. California is a beautiful state. It's just L.A. and some of the cities just are horrific. But, I think I already explained about where that saying came from. But it's just that I don't want 100 comments when one will suffice, right? Like if I make a mistake on the title, it's good if somebody points it out. It's bad if it's hundreds of people point it out. Usually it's not that many. It helps me because, I tend to make mistakes because of laziness and a combination of laziness and dyslexia. But anyways, I think that's all. Everybody have a Merry Christmas, a Merry Thanksgiving, and, or at least a grateful one. And only spirituality will save this world. As Paul Romano definitely points to the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.